I've got survival horror on the brain thanks to the recent re-release of the remaster of Resident Evil. That game that has come out like 10,000 million billion times. It's a good game though, still really good, holds up fantastically despite being, well, like, it was released in 2002, the remake, and then that was based on a game that was released in, like, what was it, 1996, and I still feel it holds up. I've actually been replaying Resident Evil 2 as well, and there are many reasons why that holds up. So I've got enough topics based on that series now to give us about 5 or 6 episodes, some of which are going to be based off rants on a review I did of the Resident Evil thing last week. So cool. I get to plagiarise myself. Free content. Awesome. Enjoy the first one, and I'll be peppering those throughout the year. Up until October, when I've run out of them and need something for the Halloween episode, and realise I used up all of my survival horror episodes before then. Fantastic. Enjoy. I recently reviewed Resident Evil HD Remaster, Remake, Re-Release, Remake on the Jimquisition.com and started going off on a tangent about environmental design and why Resident Evil's was so good. There's a lot of reasons why Resident Evil as a game is so beloved, why it has remained so stuck in our minds, and why it revolutionised survival horror, even if it didn't specifically create the genre. We can talk about its control scheme, fixed cameras, puzzles, zombies, and amazingly awful dialogue all we want, but for me, the biggest reason why Resident Evil is so meaningful is the Spencer Mansion itself. The Spencer Mansion serves as the setting for Resident Evil, a big creepy house surrounded by mountains used in unethical biological experiments that went zomborifically wrong. While the game expands out from the initial entrance hall of the mansion, what's notable about the game's structure is just how often one will be in that hall, striking out from it into the network of corridors and rooms that make up the environment's deadly spider's web. At first, the maze-like building intimidates as one looks at 2 huge wings of a big house full of locked doors, puzzles, traps, and monsters, but it is ultimately a mansion, a rather limited space that for all its maze-like qualities connects in logical ways and requires a lot of running back and forth through its hallways to the point where one becomes very familiar. What first introduces itself as a sprawling, intimidating maze soon feels like home. A deadly home, crawling with zombies and other biological atrocities, but a home nonetheless. Continued exposure to the same areas instills a navigational expertise in the player as they soon learn the best shortcuts, the safest routes from room to room, the faster and more efficient methods of navigating the world. There is an intimacy with the environment that you just don't see anymore. In fact, these days, a game trying to do what Resident Evil did might very well get critically mauled for enforcing backtracking. Backtracking, the need to go back and forth over previously traversed areas, is a dirty concept these days, often sneered at, and often rightly so, as it's not done all that well in most cases, but it's not given credit for how, when used right, it can turn a location into something special. This method of environmental design was a mainstay of old point-and-click adventure games, expanded upon with Metroidvania-style titles, and it produced a number of unforgettable PlayStation-era action releases, such as Metal Gear Solid, which designed Shadow Moses in a similar fashion, and thus crafted a game world I find unforgettable. The word unforgettable is important, for you see, I will never forget Resident Evil. It had been close to 10 years since I last touched any version of the first game, but replaying it recently felt like coming home. I won't forget its lavish entrance hall, its eerily silent bar room, its crow-infested gallery, or the relief I felt every time I reached its stairwell safe rooms. And yet, conversely, I cannot tell you a single memorable place in the huge Far Cry 4, a game I played only months ago. See, these days games are all about being massive, square footage is king, but when you focus on just being huge, you forget what makes a game world truly special, that sense of character and personality that one can only truly appreciate through a sense of intimacy. This is not to say large or even huge environments cannot themselves encourage familiarity. I explored so much of Skyrim that I felt the same wash of nostalgia that I do with Resident Evil, but you have to work that much harder to give your game world a sense of personality, a reason to revisit and get to know a whole bunch of interconnected places, and it's obvious that many modern games just can't be fucked content with all that. They'd rather build as huge a map as possible than just litter it with collectibles or a small handful of repetitive side quests that have no plot relevance and very little in-game context. I don't explore these worlds hoping to bump into some crazy random event. I don't get to visit and revisit characters who I grow fond of through continued interactions. They're cold, stale worlds, concerned only with raw square footage. I'd take a place a fraction of the size that actually means something over a vast landscape littered with nebulous content but no fucking meat. Instead, so many games want to take us on a huge roller coaster ride at a rapid pace and are so terrified to just let the player loose in a maze they can explore at their own pace. For all their overuse of the word iconic, big publishers have forgotten the meaning of it. They can craft huge, beautiful landscapes, but are unable to inject them with any actual fucking substance. Which I should say is fine. Not all games have to be designed the same way, of course. They can be open world, linear, huge, small. Every type of environmental design can, when used correctly, be excellent at telling a certain type of story or setting a certain mood. But the big budget world is tilted so far in favour of the huge and sterile worlds that we just don't get to see Spencer Mansions anymore. And Spencer Mansions are so excellent at what they do, and we need to see more of them. I miss a good Spencer Mansion or a Shadow Moses, a smaller world, a world of backtracking and keycards and puzzles that no sane architect would build into a fucking house, but a world that I cannot forget, while I struggle to remember a single detail in the allegedly iconic open worlds of gaming today. Speaking of horror games, right, it's Monday, okay, Dying Light is out, I think tomorrow or the day after, and no review copies. What's going on? Stop doing that. We had an episode, in fact the very first independent Jimquisition was about this shit with reviews, okay? Don't do it. I want to be chased by a zombie and do a parkour, because I can't do it in real life. I'll just fall over and break my face. So sort it out, please. I want to run away from a zombie. Thank you. And thank God for me. Fucking review embargo shit. Don't do it. I want to run away from a zombie.